Greenwood of Super Woke News, and Jim Cask of Cask and Crime. Jim, correct me. Come on, Crime and Cask or Cask and Crime?
Crime and Cask. You got it.
Yeah, there you go. And we're on WBFF Radio, LF 97.7 FM, and we're going to talk about Maggie and the Murdaugh saga again today. Talk to me, guys. What do we know about Maggie's phone?
Well, there's a lot.
Go ahead.
It doesn't prove what the prosecution said it proved. But listen, can we talk a bit about Jim's got a book coming out tomorrow?
Yeah,
You want to talk about that?
that first. Yeah, just a heads up to everybody. I'm working. I can't imagine the amount of research that Jim puts into this stuff, and how and the time and energy that he has. It kind of amazes me. But we're going to be having at the Halton County Library at the Alexieville branch. We're going to have Jim in there talking to the book club. The date is yet to be determined. But we also have a tentative book signing in Walterboro, inside of the courthouse. Jim, you want to hit your book a little bit and tell us what the book is going to be about, the one that's released tomorrow?
Sure. The book is called Because Enough is Enough. It's a tell-all book about how Juror 785 was wrongly removed as the egg lady. If you remember, she was removed by Judge Newman on the day they were going to go deliberate. She was, as Newman said, listen, to all intents, you've been a great juror, but, there's like too much smoke here, and we're going to have to replace you. And what the book is really about and dives into, 785 is the author. These are her words. These are her experiences. I wrote them for, but she believes, and we present evidence within the book, that it was a conspiracy or a scheme to have her removed from the jury. Why? Because people thought that either A, she didn't know what she was going to vote for, and therefore I need a guilty verdict, or they thought she was going to vote not guilty, and again, they needed a guilty verdict. So it really dives into that. It really is a tell-all book. It's evidence-based, backs everything up. It also gives her opinion on a lot of things. It's a good read. It's a couple hundred pages, but it goes in from opening statements to witnesses like David Owen to Nathan Tootin to really everything. And the Murdaugh, when he got up there, and that really is important because when Alec gets up on the stand, that's when she alleges that Becky Hill really started to talk and get involved as far as her alleged.
Did Alex threaten? Did Becky Hill feel threatened by how persuasive Alex Murdaugh was on the stand?
Well, she did tell the jurors, according to the jurors, and both jurors, Juror Z and 785, that don't believe what the prosecution is telling you. Watch their body language. These are things that just shouldn't be said by someone who works for the state of South Carolina during the trial of the century.
It's a violation of the Sixth Amendment.
Let's pull away from this a little bit.
Anyway, their book comes out tomorrow on Amazon.
It's a little too sensitive for me on the radio, by the way.
No problem. But the book comes out tomorrow. The book comes out tomorrow on Amazon, and you can watch that hour episode on Fox Nation.
It's about that hour episode on Fox Nation.
Yeah, it comes out on Fox Nation. So you're going to have an interview with 785. She has already put her face out there. Tomorrow she will put her name out there, and as well as Juror Z, but she's already said her name. Her name is Mandy Pierce. Excuse me, Sean.
Juror Z is the juror who told Judge Toll that she was persuaded that Rebecca Hill had contact with her.
Yes.
That was of and concerning matters that the jury was deliberating about.
Correct.
And that should have been a reason right there for Toll to have granted a new trial to Alex Murdaugh. Can I ask you, we talked about that they were conspiring to remove Juror 785. Who is the they?
Well, that's in the book.
Listen, can we avoid this topic entirely. And
Sure.
again, it's kind of a little too sensitive for me. And let's talk about Maggie's phone.
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk about Maggie's phone.
So nobody, and hey, I don't hear anybody calling me chicken, but like I said, it's the controversial stuff addressed in the book. Alrighty?
Yeah, it's in the book, and check out Fox Nation. You can go online, and the episode will be up, and she'll tell you all about the book and what happened.
Yeah, they got better lawyers than I do.
All right. Well, everything is alleged, and so let's just put that out there. Everything's alleged in her opinion. So when it comes to Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone, if you remember during the trial, in fact, it was in opening statements where Creighton Waters got up and he pulled his cell phone out and he says, I want you to look at this. And this is a cell phone. Everybody has one. Everybody has one in their pocket. And they tell more than just what is, you're texting somebody. They say more than this. We will show you beyond a reasonable doubt that this will prove things that Alex Murdaugh did and that he's lying about. Okay, great. So what about Maggie's phone? So what we know about Maggie's phone is that it stopped entirely. She was on it. They were heavy users, as they said, Paul, Maggie, the whole family, heavy users of the cell phone. Hers stopped at 8:49:31 seconds on June 7th, 2021.
Now, stopped means what?
It
The
means
activity on the phone stopped?
the complete activity on the phone, user activity on the phone completely stopped. Paul's
Wasn't dead at that point, right?
no, it just
No, because it still could record whether it was being moved. There's a certain data that was still recorded, but she stopped using it at 8:49:31.
right.
Really important time. Okay, so
Paul had stopped using his 30 seconds prior. So they're saying, listen, they stopped using their phones. They were heavy users. That's when they believed that they were killed. Okay. So then they go back and we start talking about what? We start talking about Alex's phone and the movements of Alex's phone. If you remember during the trial, they started talking a lot about his phone woke up, right? It woke up at like 9:02. And all of a sudden, Alex is walking around, and he's walking around, according to the prosecution, frantically, because he's taking more steps and faster steps than he had all day long. Do you remember those?
yes.
Yeah, they say, well, here's where he's walking, and this is his walking per steps, and so they were trying to lay the groundwork with that. At 9:02, he was in a hurry. Well, yeah, he was in a hurry. He wanted to get dressed, get over to his mom's house, and get back home. But his phone starts moving at 9:02. So here's the problem. Now he's going to go. He's decided. He's gotten back. He's taken a chicken out of Bubba's mouth. He's either walked Maggie or drove Maggie over to the hangar. He's driven back to the house. He sat down, whatever it was, time. He sat there, and at 9:02, he decides, you know what? I'm going to go to my mom's house. He grabs his phone. He starts walking around. So he's trying to do what when he leaves? What do you do when you leave and your husband or wife is at home and they're not around? I'll text my wife or I'll call her and say,
I'm fussing with, what I got to take in the car with me and what I'm doing. And am I still, sometimes I bring a cup of coffee with me. So I'm playing with that. Or maybe I'm still brushing my hair or chewing a pack of gum or doing something. But I'm screwing around doing stuff before I get in the car. So my phone would be, I'm probably not talking on the phone, but it could be. But it's moving. If it's with me, it's moving around, and it certainly would be recording my steps as moving around.
Yeah, and they said
there's a lot of, if somebody tracked what I did, there'd be a lot of frantic. I'm sure that somebody viewing it from the outside later would say, well, what the hell was she doing? And I do a lot of this. I forgot it, and I run back in the house and whatever. So me getting out the door into a car to get on the road is always a sort of a more complicated process than it would seem. It's because
right.
I got to remember, did I turn off the air? Did I turn on this? Did I turn on the light? Whatever. So I'm assuming that Alec was doing stuff like that. Is that kind of true?
Yeah, he went and got himself a spit cup, he said. He went to the bathroom. I was sure he was charging his phone in his bedroom, which is where I charge my phone. He picks his phone up, starts walking around, and leaves the house. But and he starts making some calls. So he called Maggie first at 9:04:32. He called her, and she didn't answer. So that's a 9:04 and 45 seconds. And he waits about another 30 seconds, decides he's going to call his dad. And that was for about 18 seconds. Nothing happens. But here's the important thing. At Maggie's phone, let's go back a little bit. I'm going to jump back. I'm going to do a Quentin Tarantino on you guys. We're going to jump back because Maggie's phone starts walking at 8:53. Now, according to the prosecution, they were killed at 8:49, somewhere around 8:49:31 and some change, right?
Okay.
So at 8:53 in 15 seconds, her phone starts to move. Now, if it's Alex, as the prosecution alleges, if it's Alex, this time during the day, which they do not mention and they do not talk about the steps at all during the trial, those 59 steps are the slowest step per second out of the whole day. Now you would ask yourself, hey, listen, it's 8:53. 4 minutes ago, I just killed my wife and son. At that point, wouldn't you think that I would be walking frantically around with her phone? And honestly, Alex knew her passcode. So if he really wanted to know what was going on in her phone, he'd have opened her phone. But her phone did a lot of different things. Once you stop as the user and the phone's locked and it was a facial recognition, it also had a passcode. That it just stopped. And so it started moving again at 8:53. And during that time, her phone did try to recognize the person. So someone was looking at that phone. And of course, it wasn't Maggie. So it didn't open the phone. But what a phone will do as you move it around from an orientation change to, let's say, a horizontal, or back to portrait, and slowly that phone moved 59 steps. And 59 steps, this is important because 59 steps by a human is about 150 feet. I've done the math, I've looked it up, I've cross-referenced it, it's 150 feet. So her phone moved 150 feet. Now, when you're down by the dog kennels and where Maggie was found, which was over by that dog house, remember we talked about that last week? Yeah. So where she laid, her phone was picked up. And if you look at 150 feet in any direction, the only place that really makes sense is on the other side of the hangar. And if you walk 59 steps or 150 feet, it literally, 59 steps ends on the backside of the hangar where the gravel road goes around the backside of the hangar and ends. Now, why is that important? Why is that important? That's important because if you recall, Sheriff Green, who came in with his body cam, and he was the first sheriff on the scene, stood and talked to Alex with his flashlight and was like, there's tire tracks over here in the grass.
Yes, he did.
What are these tire tracks? Are these you? And Alex was very matter of fact. He looked at it. He's like, no, I came from that way. And when Alex said I came from that way, what he meant was the house was that way. So he came from the house. He's not going to leave the house, go out the main gate, go out Moselle Road, go back down and come into the back entrance. They had a little, path or whatever from the house down to the dog kennels. So it was very matter of fact.
Jim, is that pointing to a second shooter?
Absolutely.
Pointing to the killers, the real killers.
The real killers.
I don't think Alec was a shooter at all. It's pointing to the real killers.
Okay. Well,
Sure.
So
because they came, they had a car somewhere, and that's why not getting impressions of those tires or even of the footprints, not preserving that evidence, because it was raining, and Alec pointed it out, and Green had noticed it, and law enforcement did nothing to preserve that evidence of other people on the property at the time of the murders. And it's outrageous that we don't know, because all of that was lost because of the rain that night, and none of it was preserved. Right. And there were ways they could have even photographed it.
Right.
They could have gotten impressions of it. There were ways to preserve that evidence, and they didn't try to.
Yeah, and then
keep going.
Another sheriff, Captain Chapman, by the way, his brother was on the jury. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense to nobody. But Captain Chapman also confirmed on the stand that he saw the same tire tracks. He also said that he didn't take a picture of them. Everybody has a phone in their pocket. Just take a picture. No one did. And then there was a fire chief from, I believe, Colleton or Hampton, one of the two. Probably Colleton. And he noticed them as well. So you have three officials that noticed these tire tracks. And what did the tire tracks do? According to Captain Chapman and the fire chief, it appeared that they came off of the gravel road and turned around and moved back onto the gravel road. Now, what would that tell you?
It was when they come parked and then later on turned to leave the property.
Yeah, they came in the backside. They came into the backside to go pick up their friend who was sitting on the same spot where 59 Steps ended.
Because he was there to drop off a bunch of drugs, which I'll pick that anyway. So let's keep going. We already talked about this before. Yeah, okay. But there's a bit of speculation here, but there's some things that are not speculative. So keep going. Because get back to talking about these steps. Because if Maggie's phone is moving, if Alex is supposedly in possession of Maggie's phone, and her phone is moving one way, and Alex's phone, being held by the same person at the same time, is recording entirely different movements, it leads me to believe that Alex was in fact not holding her phone, but somebody else was, like the real killers who took it from the property, looked at it, wondered about it. Keep going, Jim, because I think you've done a lot of. I think you explained this better than the prosecution ever did, and certainly even better than the defense. I don't recall Jim mentioning this as closing at all.
No.
So keep going.
But so think about this, and now you have to just jump for a second to Alex. I'm Alex, and I just killed my wife and son. What in the heck? I have got, and I'm leaving at 9:07. I am leaving. My body is going to be clean at 9:07. I'm in my truck, and I'm heading out to my mom's. Okay, so you would think at 8:53 to 8:55, I'm not going to be sitting around slowly walking with my wife's phone, trying to see what it's doing, moving it from vertical to sideways, while I'm walking slowly with it for 59 steps for over 2 minutes, by the way. This is precious time that you have to clean up, get rid of guns, do all kinds of things that the prosecution just never talked about, ever. There's a lot of things in Juror 785's book. There's a lot of things that the prosecution says, and she also said there's a lot of things they didn't say. And you have to go back and look at this testimony and look at the evidence and see what they said and what they didn't say. And right there,
I would never expect the prosecution to bring that up and discuss it. I would expect the defense to bring it up and discuss it because, Alex was his suspect from the night of the murder on. All right.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the statement was made. There is no danger to the community. Blah 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 blah. Right.
Yeah.
Which means that they.
But the prosecution work for us. They work for the people, and their goal is not to target somebody and make sure they can selectively use only the evidence that's proof of his presumed guilt. They're supposed to be seeking the truth because they work for us. So during the investigation phase, the prosecution should absolutely have been putting these facts together along with the human trace test.
They're not going to.
But not at trial. I agree. At trial, but at trial, I don't know where the defense was. And even if you know what happened with that testimony? It went on too long and it got too tedious. And so you just got numb about what's the point? What are they trying to say? And the defense did not do a good enough job wrapping it up with a bow to say, here's what's weak about their case. Jim, you right now are doing a better job explaining that it couldn't happen, and you're not done. And I know that you've got more to say, but you're explaining it better than the defense did. And I think that is really, really deficient of them. It's cause for concern for me that they didn't put this together very well.
I agree with you. I don't. They completely missed this one. Completely missed this one.
Keep going. Alex is just taking his own sweet. If you believe the prosecution, he's just killed Paul and Maggie. He's got to be covered in blood, and yet he's just taking 2 minutes to walk slowly around with Maggie's phone, a phone that he has, and he knows what's on it. He has no reason to be concerned about it whatsoever. He has no reason to look twice at it. As a matter of fact, he has no reason to move it at all.
Right, but
there's no reason to move that phone. Keep going.
But if you're the killers and you see that she's laying there dead, excuse me, that she's dead. Now she's got her phone in her hand. What the hell is she? I mean, was she live on Facebook? Did she call 911? Did she call Alex? I mean, who did she call? So now we're like, here's my hypothesis of what happened. They died somewhere around 8:49:31 and some change. Paul first, Maggie second. Maggie surprised us. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if you're the killers, one of them's probably laying on the ground that just killed Paul because he fell back over onto the sidewalk. The other one,
his phone. He's on top of his phone, so they're not worried about his phone.
Right. His phone is in his back pocket, Paul's back pocket, and then the other one just shot Maggie, and now they're all looking at each other like, "What in the heck just happened? Oh my God!" So now you have to wait about 2 minutes to see if headlights from the main house. Did Alec hear all that? Is he coming out? Is he coming down?
Yes.
So you're at about 8:50 right now. So you don't do anything for 3 minutes. You sit there. You're either yelling at each other, you're talking about what the hell just happened or whatever. Then all of a sudden it's like, we got to get out of here. He's not coming. But one of you is covered in blood. Covered in blood from Paul Murdaugh.
You don't know what Maggie recorded. Paul didn't have time to record. You killed Paul, but you knew that the phone wasn't in his hand. He wasn't recording it. It was in his back pocket.
Right.
Maggie, you're not sure what she recorded because you killed her second. She came running, and she may have been saying something in addition to running, and so they don't. Yeah. They're probably terrified about what is on her phone.
So I've been up and down. Yeah, I've been up and down Moselle Road, and there's one spot on Moselle Road. It's close to Cross Swamp Road. There's one spot that you can drive into and go behind a tree line that no one will see your vehicle. That's the only place on Moselle Road that actually happens. It's easy to drive into. But one of them is covered.
Jim, what kind of trees? I mean, was this true on June 7th of 2021? Or are these fast-growing trees that in the last 3 years have grown up and they're growing every time?
No. This is a big tree line. It's covered in brush. So now you're sitting there and you're like, I'm covered in blood. I can't go because God forbid we walk together on this road to go back to the truck to get out of here, and a sheriff drives by and what happened to you? Not to mention the fact you're carrying the gun. So I'm going to sit here with her phone and the guns. You go get the vehicle. Now that is about an 8 to 9 minute walk. I don't care, even if you're going to run, but you're not going to be dressed in camo or whatever they were dressed in and running down the side of the road. So it takes about 8 to 9 minutes, and then it takes 1 minute from where the truck was to drive back. So now you've got approximately 10 minutes. In that time frame, her phone does those orientation changes. It takes a snapshot of the phone takes a snapshot of an open app, which was Facebook, which really means nothing. But her phone is diddling around until about 9:03 when it kind of goes dead, and then it wakes back up again at 9:05. Excuse me, 9:04:45. Now, why is 9:05:44? Why is that important? Because that is roughly 10 minutes from the time that the phone starts walking. And when I said it took about 10 minutes for the guy to walk down there, get his truck, and come back. So what happens at 9:55? Excuse me, 9:05:44. The truck comes back to pick up his buddy. So he picks up her phone, right? He picks up her phone and they get into the truck. Now they take off. Now this is important because this is now when Alec is now outside and he calls Maggie's phone. Okay.
Mhm.
He calls Maggie's phone at 9:06:14. And if you recall during the trial, Alex said, I was outside and I was calling Maggie. And he goes, I first called her and I thought, oh, I hear them coming up. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Well,
I also remember him talking about an animal or something that was out there in the yard that might have gone by.
wildcat.
Anyway, keep going with this. Yeah.
So he calls her and he thought they were coming up. So he hangs up. But when he called her and he's taking steps, and SLED agent got on the stand and said, yes, he was outside. GPS confirms it. His iPhone says he was taking steps. He calls Maggie Murdaugh, and her phone, when he calls, her phone makes an implement change at 9:06:12. According to the timeline of the prosecution, which could be wrong, but it was 9:06:14 when Alex called her. They say 2 seconds apart. Okay. But I know as well as you do, sometimes you call somebody and you answer it before they're like, I didn't even hear it ring. So these types of things happen. You're 2 seconds off. It really doesn't matter. But what's important about this is, and the SLED agent testified this, was that Alec is moving. He's walking towards his Suburban. He's outside and he's recording steps. Please, somebody out there in the land of whatever, tell me how Maggie Murdaugh's phone is making implement changes from orientation to portrait, right? Who's calling me? And it does not record steps, even though her phone was just recording steps. Not more than minutes ago, her phone recorded steps all day long. And now Alec is walking. So if Alex killed her, and he has her phone with him, and the prosecution says, oh, here's what we think he did. We think he took the phone from landscape to portrait and then called her and saw it come in, which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But somebody explained to me how her phone is not moving and not recording steps. Excuse me. Her phone. While his is at the exact same time. Do you know why phones don't record steps sometimes? When they're traveling in vehicles, your phone will not record you taking steps if it's in a vehicle just moving fast. And that is the time where I just told you that Alec thought he heard Paul and Maggie coming back up in the truck.
Okay.
He heard the actual killers with Maggie's phone driving by the main entrance of Moselle Road. I mean, mind blown. Yeah. So then he calls again, hangs up because he thought he heard them, and then he calls again. He calls again at 9:06:15, 1 second afterward. It lasts about 3 seconds. And then what happens to her phone at 9:06:20, which is 5 seconds later? Her phone makes a sideways orientation change. It's still not recording steps. So in all highly probability, it's moving in a vehicle, but it makes an orientation change to sideways. Now, or it just makes it sideways. Yeah. Now, if I'm going to throw a phone out the window, I'm not going to throw it when the phone is vertical. I'm going to, it's like a Frisbee. I'm going to take it and get it sideways. So my assumption in my book, I write, is that at 9:06:15, when Alex calls a second time, that the real killers are like, Jesus, he's got the, is he tracking us? Does he know where we are? Like, get rid of that damn phone and open up the window.
It would be like the phone is all of a sudden radioactive. Get rid of it, throw it out the window, get rid of it. And that's what they did.
Right, because he called at 9:06:14, then he called at 9:06:15. I mean, he is calling and hanging up like something's going on. So at 9:06:20, her phone goes sideways, and that is the last time her phone is recorded. Anything, her backlight goes off at 9:07. So her phone does not move any longer. But here's what's really important. Now, this testimony was weeks apart. The SLED agent and the phone data was in the very beginning of the trial, like maybe the first week. Right. Now we jump ahead, how long was this trial? 6 weeks. Now we jump ahead about 5 or 6 weeks, and you remember his brother Marvin Murdaugh.
Yes.
Marvin Murdaugh was the one who found Maggie's phone. He found Maggie's phone because he talked to Buster. And Buster's like, "Oh yeah, I have her on Find My iPhone." And he's like, "Oh, do you have her login?" Dad does. What did Alex do? He gave him Maggie's login. He's like, "Oh, great. Here's her login. Find her phone. Even though I threw it out the window last night, please go find it." So John Marvin takes Buster's phone and he walks back down to the dog kennels as he testified. And he found some sled agents and he says, "Hey, I can find Maggie's phone. I've got this particular app," and Buster gave me his phone. And he testified that sled agents were like, "Nah, that's okay. We've got some equipment coming shortly and we'll find it. Don't worry about it." And I remember John Marvin was like, "I thought that was strange. Well, I mean, I'm standing here. I can take you to her phone now," and they didn't want to. So he's like, "I found some agents from Duffy Stone's office, which is the 14th solicitor's office." And he goes and says, "Hey, I can find her phone." And they said, "Hey, that's fantastic. Let's go get it." So he's down by the dog kennels, and now he hands the phone over to the sled agent. And it looks like, according to John Marvin, he says her phone, they have those little green dots, right?
Yes.
On Find My iPhone. John Marvin says, "Well, it looks like it's right at the end of the back entrance on Moselle Road." So he and the sled agent start walking down the back.
And he and the Duffy Stone agent.
Yes.
Walking down.
Did I say sled agent? Sorry.
That's okay.
And they start walking down the end of the road because that's where the dot is. When they get towards the end, and he's like, "I'm walking with them and I'm looking at the phone with him together, and there's the dot." And then we get towards the end of the road, and all of a sudden the dot moved straight down Moselle Road down to its final resting spot. Which
It
means
was quite a ways, wasn't it? It was like 1,000 feet or something. How far was it?
maybe 1,500 feet, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So what that
uses dots all the time. And that dot is really important. Google uses that dot. You're tracking an address or you're trying to find a phone. Those dots are important.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So
I don't understand why the dot moved when John Marvin had it.
Well, here's the thing: if Maggie even was near her phone was even near the dog kennels, that's where her dot would have been. But but the phone in the Find My iPhone recorded her phone at the end of the back entrance, which would have been the way that the killers went out, was the back entrance, because they came in the back entrance, went around the back of the hangar, went around, picked him up. He gets into the car. The phone stops recording.
That's why the dot started there. I misunderstood you before. I thought the thing that was important is the dot moved. It's not. They said if Alec had it, he wouldn't have been sitting at the end of the dog kennel waiting for a truck to come and pick him up. He wouldn't have been sitting there.
No,
the back of the house doing what everybody was doing.
The dot would have been at the house, not at the end of Moselle Road.
Right.
Back into the Moselle Road.
But there would not have been a dot where the killers paused at the end of the dog kennel. Alec wouldn't have paused. He had no reason to. He had to get going. He had to go clean up. He had to go do whatever it was he was doing to miraculously clean his clothes, clean all the blood off of him, clean. How do you not drop blood? There was that tiny little speck of blood that whatchamacallit found on the Bronco that basically led to Furman getting, the O.J. Simpson getting convicted, I guess, or he didn't get convicted, but getting charged. And yet, Alex Murdaugh left no blood anywhere. What kind of miraculous thing was that? That doesn't even make any sense now that I think of it. But yeah, so that's why the dot is there at the end of the hangar, though. That's where somebody holding her phone was standing until they took the phone and took it with them, and then eventually threw it out of the car. That's why when you go find My Phone, the app starts with where the phone had paused for a while, which just happened to be at the end of the kennel, at the end of the hangar. I know exactly what you're talking about. I get it. Yeah. In fact, we have pictures of that. We could show. There are a lot of pictures of that into the building. And Alex would have no reason to be there. He wouldn't have the time to be there.
No.
He's got to move. He's going to move in lightning speed. He's going to set a world land speed record getting the gun disposed of and all the evidence gone and himself cleaned up, and then somehow having no human trace, wearing a shirt that has, what did it have? It had the guinea fowl on it, but no.
It's a chicken.
It's a chicken, absolutely.
That was called avian blood, AVIAN. That's what was found.
It's an avian. That's a bird. That's a species. It's a bird. Everything is it's an avian blood. Sure.
So you've got avian blood on your T-shirt, and we talked about this last week. Having that blood on his T-shirt proves that was the T-shirt he was wearing.
Yes.
When he was with.
When they did the video of Bubba.
When they were still alive. So,
yes.
And that he had no human blood on it, no blood spatter, high velocity blood spatter, no matter what that idiot out in Oklahoma says.
Yeah, the bell.
Yeah, he had some blood on the steering wheel. Yes, he did. And he had some GSR on his hands, which wasn't a whole lot. But he did go get that 12-gauge shotgun, and he did say he checked Maggie. And maybe he said he checked Paul, but he checked Maggie. So there's a little bit of blood on his hands, but
Tim, out of sync for a second. This is just the way I think. What do you think the guns are? Do you think the guns are back along that tree line?
Honestly, I don't know where they are. I think they're buried somewhere. I
don't understand. It seems to me that a good tracking dog could find a gun.
Oh God, no!
No?
Listen, you guys, Jim, you're down here. How when you drive down any of these 2-lane blacktop roads?
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
And you look off to the side. How many places do you see that have 2 and 3 foot of standing water in them?
Yeah, that's why they call it.
A lot.
That's why they call it the low country.
Yeah. I mean, it's so vast. And I'll tell you,
those guns, find it. They could be anywhere.
You'll never find it.
Well, that's what Becky Hill said. You'll never find them. Forget the guns. But so he had avian blood on him, which was the chicken. He took the chicken out of Bubba's mouth and he put the chicken back, and somehow he got some sort of splatter of the chicken blood on his shirt, which meant that was the shirt he was wearing when they were alive last. So now he's out. He's trying to call her, and her phone is making movements while he is walking himself. But, they asked, it was Philip Barber. He did ask the sled agent. He said, so in your 20 years of experience, have you ever seen this, one phone recording the other one? Nah, he's like, all I can tell you is what I know. And it's that hers was not recording steps and his was. I mean, he wasn't going to give them any ammunition that they could use. I get that.
The jurors had to say that's an evasive answer. So that's stupid. And all of us have seen CSI or some kind of crime, Law and Order or whatever. So we understand when law enforcement is being evasive. At this point, with that testimony and Barber's cross, I think that a lot of members of that jury had to think that there was reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And maybe can I ask you, in the 785, in the book, Because Enough is Enough, do you have any insight about what the jury might have thought at that point, or is that something that is in the book? I'm excited to read this book.
On Maggie's phone? Is that what you're asking? On Maggie's phone?
No, I'm asking if the whole scenario with the phone, was there a point in time when the jury felt that there was reasonable doubt? Did she have a sense, as the jury went on over that 6 weeks, that there were times when the jury thought there was reasonable doubt? Because it seems to me the jury was communicating. I don't know that I entirely trust what the jury says they were doing, given that at the Toll hearing, when they were asked not to use their phones, they're back there using their phones during the hearing. So they didn't always follow directions the way one would hope they would. So did she have a sense of how the jury felt about this evidence about the phone? Were they confused by it? Were they?
No, not by the phone. I think, things like John Marvin, it was too spread apart. We were talking weeks have gone by. So
yeah, and the financial information has come out.
Yeah, so reasonable doubt in the juror's mind because she talks a lot about what Judge Newman told him. Judge Newman told him he's innocent until proven guilty, and the evidence is going to prove him guilty, nothing else. You guys are going to sit and you're going to listen to it. So they really went into this, well, he's not guilty. I haven't heard anything. So think about all the evidence, including the cell phone data, okay, which was everything that was presented prior to the financial information. And the financial information was about, what, halfway through the trial?
Yeah, a little, maybe tick more than halfway, I think.
So
wouldn't it take 2 weeks to present? Yeah.
Up until that point, according to her, the jury thought he was not guilty. That I wouldn't say not guilty, that they haven't proven anything, that he is still innocent in their minds. Once the financial information came out, that's when they changed. They're like, oh,
I have a question. And try and, really dig down deep into yourself when you answer this question. Do you think that jury really understood what reasonable doubt was?
I can only.
That's just any jury does, Frank.
Yeah, I can only tell you.
Jury of our peers.
I can only tell you what she said and what juror Z said. I don't know. I can't speak for the other jurors, but they knew enough to get them by. Let's put it that way. Based off of what the judge told them, what they thought reasonable doubt was.
But I saw the trailer, the Fox News trailer for this, The Fall of the House of Murdaugh, and they seem like intelligent women. They don't seem. They are. Yeah, that was my sense. So, what the hell happened?
Well, to tell you the truth, me independently, any kind of circumstantial case like this, all right, leads itself to reasonable doubt. How the hell? And listen, I'm not condemning the system, but I'm saying, in a case that there's only circumstantial evidence, how can you not have reasonable doubt?
Well, I think Elaine really hit on it. I think Jim Griffin, I admire him for what he's doing, but his closing statement was not really, it wasn't good at all.
Frank, I think you and I were texting, and he was talking about Scottish football. Remember?
Yeah.
And it was, there was only 2 ways to look at it. It was, we were witnessing the worst closing in the history of all humanity, or he had somehow identified that the jury were Scottish football fans, and the analogy made sense. Because otherwise, he did not wrap up anything with when you start the trial, you make promises to the jury, whether you're the prosecution or the defense. Yeah. And then at the end of trial, you go back over the promises you made in the beginning, and you confirm with the jury that you did what you said you were going to do, and therefore you're trustworthy, and they should agree with you that your client, the person who's either guilty or innocent, depending on whether you're the prosecution or the defense attorneys. But when Dick Harpootlian chose not to even make the closing, that's a horrible sign. That's rule number 1, don't do that. And then Jim's closing, what the hell? It made no sense. So,
well, there's plenty of times during that trial, the T-shirt, no blood on it, right? I never heard them bring up the fact that he had Avian blood on him, and what I have said was that proves that he was down there when they were alive. I mean, he doesn't have any blood on his shirt after, so he didn't shoot anybody, because if he did, he shot 2 people, one close range, he would have blood on him.
It would be all over him, yes. And it would be on his skin and his hair and his face and his eyelids, in his nostrils, everywhere.
It's like, she says it's like going to the beach, like when she talks about the blood, like, you come home from the beach, there's sand and spots that you just don't know. And so that's the same thing with blood. And there was none on him. So, I mean, none to speak of, I have some on the steering.
How did he so clean that he then got in the car and went over to see his mom, and the car wasn't just covered in blood, because he couldn't be that clean.
No blood.
The doorknob, you'd have it everywhere.
No blood in the car, no blood on the golf cart, no blood in the shower, no blood on his clothes, no blood on towels. I mean, just keep saying the word no blood. There's no blood.
No, I can't make marinara sauce and not get, tomato sauce all over the kitchen. It's spatters here, it's spatters there, it's everywhere.
Right. And if you're wearing a white shirt, that little drop of marinara sauce looks like you just killed somebody, right? So
Yeah.
And then you've got the thing with the phones moving. Like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you cannot convict this man. You cannot convict this man. Why? Because how can you explain to yourself by voting guilty or not guilty? You have to vote not guilty because he was walking. And her phone is not recording steps, which it had all day long. And they told you, the prosecution told you that the reason it wouldn't record steps is because it's in a vehicle, which means somebody else. We're talking about another shooter that has her phone and then throws it out because he's trying to call her. And then the other thing, which I have done, of course, I think I've mentioned this before, that neither the prosecution, that's one of those things that they don't talk about, or the defense, one of the things they should have talked about, was the fact that I myself could not replicate, knowing exactly where Maggie Murdaugh's phone was found. I could not replicate starting out on the main entrance on Moselle Road and getting my car up to 44 miles an hour while I'm driving with my knees trying to text and say, going to check on M, be right back, and hit send. And then after you hit send, you have to be able to roll the window down and throw her phone out the window. I did it at least a dozen times, and every single time, stone sober during the day, I could not do it. Every time I did it, I hit send. I was already past the spot where Maggie's phone was, which means that he didn't do that. It just didn't. He didn't have time to do it.
So why didn't the defense do this? The defense brought in a lot of experts who, quote one of them that was compelling to you right now, and I doubt any of us can. I can't. And part of it wasn't that they were bad experts, but they were poorly prepared. And the defense didn't take what they had to say, didn't take their expertise and tie it specifically to Alex's innocence.
Here's a question. And Jim, you tried to replicate this.
Yeah.
Was from the location of the phone and from the tracking of Alex's car with the OnStar, all right? So we know what direction he was going in.
Yeah.
Would this phone have to be thrown out the passenger window?
Well, he would have had to have thrown it from, if it was Alex, he would have had to have thrown it from the driver's seat out the passenger side because it was on.
Across the passenger seat, out the passenger window.
Yeah, in the dark.
How come anytime I try and throw something out the passenger window, I end up spilling it all over the place?
Exactly.
And it ends up in the back seat.
But
it goes right back in and ends up in the back seat.
But this guy with bad eyes at pitch black at night, driving with his knees high on opioids, hits a perfect touchdown for 60 yards. I mean, come on. It just doesn't happen.
No, but it does happen when you're in the passenger seat, somebody else is driving, and you toss it out.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, then you can do it.
Right.
I don't know, you guys. I think we should be the defense team next time.
Well, and listen, just not to be the what do you call it, the arbiter of bad news here. We have about 8 more minutes to go to make an hour. Now, what do you guys? You brought up the question. We should be his defense attorneys. Who do you think in his second trial he will get to be his defense attorney?
Same ones.
Get out of town.
Same ones. Unless somebody wants to step forward and be on the team pro bono, because they don't have any more money. There's no more money. And then his attorneys, Dick and Jim, had said they're in this. We'll do it. We're going to do it without getting paid. We feel that we've gotten paid enough.
Okay, so this is such a high. There are a lot of cases like try to get somebody to argue a constitutional law case before the United States Supreme Court. That is never going to happen. But this is such a high-profile case. I would think that there might easily be a great defense attorney that would say, "I will pro bono second chair of this or something. What they need is somebody, I think, a little bit younger. I hate to say this, and a little bit more in command of facts, with a little bit more of a photographic memory and a little bit higher energy level. I thought Philip Barber did a good job, but
let's look at this. Not only does there need to be a change within you,
yeah, there needs
to be attorneys that do not have ties to the state of South Carolina.
or they need to be attorneys that are not named Dick Hartley and Jim Griffin, or they just need to associate one more attorney. Dick and Jim are great, but they stink at this, and they stunk at it. And I like them very much. I really do. I think they're nice people, and I think they're probably good attorneys, but they screwed it up, and there's just nice way to say it. So get some great hotshot defense. I can't even think of who's a great hotshot defense attorney, but there are all kinds of them all over the place. And just have him sit there as second chair or lead attorney, because they need. And then do not get expert witnesses from north of the Mason-Dixon line. Just South Carolina has enough expert witnesses. Use the local guys to explain this, and don't make it bigger than it is. And then no more information about the financial crimes. It was highly prejudicial. It was incredibly irrelevant to who killed Paul and Maggie. And no.
Oh, and I agree with you, but I think look, it's going to be a different case without the financial crimes, because it's a pure murder case. All right.
Yep.
The sentiment about the financial crimes, I think, really swayed the whole trial. Okay. Because now everybody felt like, because of the financial crimes, everybody thought that they were taken advantage of. Whether every juror felt like a victim to his financial misdealings. Okay,
right.
And if we avoid the psychological impact of this murder trial getting muddied by the financial crimes, I think that we're really doing a misjustice. Number one, I think the venue has to be changed. Number two, I think that the witnesses have to be valid witnesses. I mean, I got to tell you, I could blow holes in the credibility of prosecution's witnesses all day long. I mean, that's like going to a college that isn't accredited. What are their credentials? I went to a class. My company sent me to a class for a day. Now, I'm going to tell you something. On my curriculum, it says that I attended Wharton Business School. Yeah, I attended Wharton Business School for
along with our good buddy Donald Trump. Yeah.
It's like that guy that Sled brought in, who sat in his office in the weekend throwing cell phones on his desk. They were like, "What's your training in this?" He's like, "I have none."
And so literally says to Newman, "Your Honor, I ask that this testimony be excluded on the basis that he is not an expert.
He overruled him.
An expert on this."
He overruled him.
Worse than that, no, Newman, because I played this, I did content about this. Newman's immediate response to what Philip Barber just said is, on what basis? What Philip Barber has just said, on the basis that this guy has just testified, he's not an expert on this. And so Newman goes, on what basis? So I thought, well, Newman must have just been awakened. He's sound asleep and didn't even hear the first part of Barber's objection. But Barber had to be thinking, have I just landed in a parallel universe? This is insanity. It's almost comical.
Well, it's because Barber had agreed that he was an expert witness in another form that he was.
Context, but that doesn't mean that you're an expert about what Barber said.
About anything you say. Right, all of a sudden he's expert on everything he says.
It's like I'm a medical doctor, so I'm an expert about, let's say I'm an OBGYN. So I'm an expert about the female reproductive tract, but that doesn't mean I am an expert about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and I'm not an expert on doing a grandfather song test.
Right.
You know, what's
Not even that. You're right, but I'm closer to that than this guy was too. And then I like it later on. Barbara says, "Do you understand what the scientific method is?" And the son of a gun says, "Yes, I do." And he goes, "Well, then did you follow any of that?" He goes, "No, I didn't." And it was so funny. It's like this is so pathetic. How could anybody find this credible? And apparently the jury did. I don't know. We'll find out. I'd be curious to talk to Juror 785. You know what I hope from her is that she's not. She kind of took it in the shorts about being characterized as the egg lady.
And then she talked. And then she talked when she didn't.
And then she, yes, and the defamatory, character assassination, that she had done something that she hadn't done, and then the bow on that was, and then she wanted this a dozen eggs, where she hadn't done that, and I don't know if you remember, but eggs were like really expensive at that time. They were going for like $12 a dozen up in the grocery stores. Okay, I might be full of crap there, but I might be wrong. But they were expensive. They were like $8 a dozen. Come on, give me some slack here. But so I don't mind her taking, saying I wanted the eggs. But anyway, she just got screwed in the media.
Yeah.
They like to make a villain out of people. They love the cult of personality. They don't care so much for substance, policy, or facts, really.
Well, they do. I mean, even Fix News today, they wrote, actually it was last night, they wrote, "With each passing day, it's becoming clear that the Murdaugh jury was rigged. This was more worse than tampering. This was engineering an outcome. Now we must find out who was involved and will they be allowed to get away with it." But then right after they wrote that, they wrote, "To be clear, he's guilty as HELL, but the process was beyond tainted." I'm like, come on, Will, let's go.
now you just quoted Will Folks, right?
If Will Folks wants to debate,
He's the one that's liable for it.
if Will Folks, yes, Will Folks said that. And if Will Folks wants to debate me live, I will do it based on the evidence, because there is not overwhelming evidence. I will put this out there to the stratosphere.
Wait. I got to tell you where Will Folks' credibility just fell. His best buddy was R.J. May. R.J. May, the legislator that just had his, that had his computers ransacked. So,
Yes.
Anybody that wants to debate me over the evidence, who thinks that the evidence is overwhelming, I'll take Nancy Grace. I don't care who it is, Fanny Politan, any attorney out there, let's go, because it's not there.
We need a different dictionary because they don't understand the definition of the word overwhelming. It is not overwhelming. Their assumptions are overwhelming, and the amount of money they make marketing their assumptions is overwhelming.
Let's finish this up with two things.
Yeah.
Number one, everybody needs a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a boogeyman. There always has to be a boogeyman, and that boogeyman is Alex Murdaugh. And number two, dog bites man does not make the news, right? Man bites dog makes the news.
Yeah.
So sensationalism sells. Everybody needs a boogeyman, and based on those two facts, Alex Murdaugh is guilty.
Right.
So he's the boogeyman, and he's a sensational boogeyman. All right, guys, what do you want to talk about next time we meet?
Well, next time we meet, we can openly talk about
more about the book.
We can openly talk about the new book, because there's
you'll be saying, "Wow, Frank, you set me up with the book club. Wow, Frank, you set me up with a book sign." Yeah, you'll be saying that too. All right, now all good. And guys, I swear to God, every time I have these on here, I feel like I end up feeling like an intellectual amoeba. All right, you guys have to go into such depth. You do such research, and Elaine, you have such a mastery of understanding of the law. It just blows me away. Guys, I thank you very much. Can we close this out? I need your acknowledgement.
Yeah, just
yes, it was a pleasure to be here.
All right.
Go to Fox Nation online, or on your whoever you're getting Fox Nation from.
It requires a subscription.
It does. It's $2.99 a month. Watch it. Buy the book. It's going to be available on Amazon. Starting on
save your money on Fox Nation. Buy the book.
Yep, it's available on Amazon on Tuesday, 8/27.
And this is Frank on Target on VFF, Red Brick Patriot Radio, LP FM 97.7. Thank you, folks, and we'll pick this up in a week or so. Thank you.
Thank you very much.